God, how much longer must I wait? Have you ever found yourself asking that question? Maybe not out loud, maybe not in front of other people, but quietly, in the middle of the night when nobody else was around. God, how much longer? How much longer do I have to carry this burden? How much longer do I have to keep praying the same prayer? How much longer before something changes? Waiting can be one of the most difficult seasons in life. Not because we stop believing, not because we stop loving God, but because we get tired. We get tired of hoping, tired of wondering, tired of watching days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months. Sometimes it feels like everyone else is moving forward while we're standing still. We watch doors open for other people. We watch prayers get answered for other people. We watch blessings arrive for other people. And quietly, a question begins to grow in our hearts. God, what about me? Have you forgotten me? The truth is, many faithful people have asked that same question. People who loved God, people who trusted God, people who never stopped believing, yet they still found themselves waiting. If that's where you are today, I want you to hear something. Waiting does not mean God has forgotten you. Just because you cannot see Him moving does not mean He isn't working. Think about a seed planted deep beneath the soil. For a long time, nothing seems to happen. No growth, no evidence, no sign that anything is changing. But underneath the surface, roots are forming, strength is developing, preparation is taking place, and sometimes God works the same way in our lives. While we focus on what we cannot see, God is working in places we cannot reach. While we wonder why nothing is happening, He is preparing things we don't yet understand. The hardest part is that we want answers. We want timelines. We want certainty. But faith often requires us to keep walking even when we don't have those things. So before you give up, before you decide your prayers have gone unheard, before you let disappointment convince you that God has abandoned you, ask yourself one question. What if God is still working even though I can't see it yet? So if God is still working even when we cannot see it, then why does waiting feel so painful? Because waiting forces us to live without answers. And if we're honest, most of us are uncomfortable with uncertainty. We want to know when, we want to know how, we want to know why, we want a timeline, we want reassurance, we want proof that everything is going to work out. But faith often asks us to trust God before we have any of those things. Think about it. If you knew exactly when your breakthrough was coming, would you need faith? If you knew the exact day the door would open, would you need to trust? Probably not. You would simply wait for the date to arrive, but that's not usually how life works. Sometimes God asks us to keep believing when we cannot see the finish line. And that's where many people become discouraged, not because they don't love God, not because they don't believe in God, but because they become exhausted from carrying unanswered questions. Maybe that's where you are today. Maybe you've prayed for something so long that you've stopped expecting anything to happen. Maybe you've become disappointed so many times that protecting yourself feels safer than hoping again. If that's you, I want you to know something. God understands your weariness. He understands your frustration. He understands the nights when you wanted to believe but struggled. He understands the tears nobody else knows about. And He understands that waiting can sometimes feel like a burden all by itself. But what if your waiting season isn't punishment? What if it isn't rejection? What if it isn't proof that God has forgotten you? What if it's preparation? Think about all the things that require preparation before they can be received. A strong building requires a foundation. A harvest requires planting. Growth requires time. And sometimes God prepares us before He delivers the blessing we've been praying for, because the blessing isn't the only thing that matters. The person receiving it matters too. Maybe God is strengthening your faith. Maybe He's teaching you patience. Maybe He's helping you become the person you'll need to be when the answer finally arrives. And while that doesn't always make the waiting easier, it does give the waiting purpose. Because if God is preparing you, then your waiting is not wasted. Every prayer, every tear, every lesson, every difficult day, none of it is wasted when it's placed in God's hands. So what do you do when you're tired of waiting? What do you do when you've prayed the prayer 100 times? What do you do when you've trusted, believed, hoped, and you're still standing in the same place? You keep holding on, not because it's easy, not because you have all the answers, but because God has been faithful before. Think about your life for a moment. There were seasons you thought would break you, moments you didn't think you would survive, days when the weight felt too heavy to carry. Yet somehow, God brought you through. Maybe not in the way you expected, maybe not on the timeline you wanted, but He brought you through. And if God was faithful then, He will be faithful now. The enemy wants you to believe that your waiting season will last forever. He wants you to believe that nothing is changing, that nothing is happening, that your prayers are going unheard. But none of those things are true. God sees every prayer you've prayed, every tear you've cried, every burden you've carried, every time you've wanted to quit but kept going anyway. Nothing about your journey has been hidden from Him. Not one moment, not one struggle, not one sleepless night. And maybe today, you still don't have the answers you're looking for. Maybe the breakthrough hasn't arrived. Maybe the door hasn't opened. Maybe the situation hasn't changed. But that doesn't mean God isn't working. Sometimes the greatest miracles begin long before we can see them. Sometimes God is moving pieces into place while we think nothing is happening at all. So if you're asking today, God, how much longer must I wait? I want to leave you with this. Your story is not over. Your prayers have not been ignored. Your waiting season is not your final destination. And even when you couldn't see His hand moving, God was working behind the scenes all along. Hold on a little longer. Keep trusting, keep believing, keep praying. Because one day you'll look back and realize that God never left you, not for a single moment. And the same God who carried you through every difficult season before is still carrying you now.